The building never sleeps. That's the first thing Daniel noticed when he started working at Wardex. The hum. Servers, cooling systems, ventilation, a constant mechanical breathing that fills every hallway, every office, every hour of the night. After a while, you stop hearing it. After a while, it just becomes the sound of the world. He's at his desk when Hugo appears in the doorway. No knock, no greeting. Hugo sets a hard drive on the desk between them, like he's setting down a chess piece, plugs it into the monitor, and steps back. Daniel looks at him. Hugo says nothing, so Daniel looks at the screen. When it ends, the room feels different, smaller somehow. Hugo unplugs the drive, slides it into his pocket, and finally speaks. Not about what was on the footage, not about what it means, just a plan. Quiet, specific, and built around one thing Hugo already knows about Daniel. He understands this building's systems better than the people who built them. Every weakness, every blind spot, every door that looks sealed but breathes just slightly at the hinge. Get it out, Hugo tells him. Get it to me. I'll handle the rest. Daniel goes home that night and doesn't sleep, but he comes back the next morning and gets to work. What he does over the following days is precise and silent, the kind of thing that only looks easy because of how long it took to learn. He moves through layers of restricted infrastructure, like he was born inside them, pulling everything, files, records, fragments of data so buried it's clear someone went to great lengths to make sure they'd never surface. Drive after drive after drive until the bag under his desk is heavy and the servers he pulled them from are hollow and quiet. All he has to do now is wait for Hugo's signal, but the signal never comes. What comes instead is a phone call. Early morning, untraceable number. A voice on the other end that sounds like it was designed in a laboratory to feel as little as possible. It tells him they know what he took. It tells him they have his girl. It gives him a window of hours and a promise of what happens if he doesn't use them correctly. Then it's just silence and a dead line. Daniel sets the phone down on the desk. Outside the window, the city is already moving. People in cars, people on sidewalks, people who have no idea that there is a bag sitting under a desk in this building that would crack the entire understanding of the world clean in half. He looks at the bag. Hugo's plan had an ending. This isn't it. Hand the drives over, she comes home, and whatever is inside them goes back into the dark where it was buried. Or he just finishes what Hugo started, and the world that exists on the other side of that choice is one nobody alive has ever seen, one nobody asked for. He never wanted to be the person sitting in this chair. That bag under the desk isn't just a plot device, it's the oldest question in the film. Who decides what the rest of us get to know? Whatever Daniel saw on that hard drive, it changed the size of the room. Spielberg never tells you how to feel about that either. He just lets the weight of it sit there. In the silence, after the footage ends, something shifted. The world got larger, and now one man is holding the door. That's where Disclosure Day lives. Not in the spectacle, not in the answer, but in the unbearable space between knowing something and deciding what to do with it. To carry that question, Spielberg needs two people. Not because the story demands a duo, but because the argument does. Margaret is a weather girl at a local news station. She's good at her job, but underneath she still has feelings that there's something more. Her boyfriend is comfortable in a way that has started to feel like a ceiling. He loves Kansas. She doesn't know why she doesn't, only that something in her keeps pulling towards something else. Somewhere else, a life that hasn't announced itself yet. I'll know when I know, she tells him, and she means it. Then the cardinal appears on the table. She locks eyes with it and the world stops. Her boyfriend is talking, but she can't hear him. Something is moving through her nervous system. Not like an invasion, more like a key in a lock that she didn't know was there. When she finally blinks, he's staring at her. You were speaking Russian, he says. She has no memory of it. By the time she gets to her car and starts driving, something has cracked open. She gets pulled over. She reads a cop's mind on the way to work, knows about his wife, his stress, the specific way that he makes her laugh, and delivers it to him like she's been doing this her whole life. She makes it to the studio, steps in front of the camera, opens her mouth, and what comes out isn't weather. It's a deep, guttural clicking, a language that no linguist has ever cataloged. She collapsed before anyone can react. Nobody in the studio understands what she said. Daniel does. He hears it on the footage that Hugo sends him, and it lands in his mind like plain English, not translated, understood, instantly, automatically, the way you understand your own name. He plays it for his girlfriend and she hears noise, but he hears meaning. That's the moment the film tips its hand. Not with a spaceship or a government briefing or a smoking gun document, just a man hearing something that no one else can hear, looking at a screen quietly realizing that his entire life has been pointing somewhere. Daniel thinks in systems. Mathematics isn't just a tool that he reaches for, it's the language his mind runs on natively. Firewalls, architecture, the logic buried inside infrastructure that everyone else just walks past. He went to prison for stealing cyber secrets, and then a company called Vortex hired him the moment he got out because you don't let a mind like that work against you when you can make it work for you. He's been living behind walls, literal ones, digital ones, psychological ones, for as long as he can remember. His whole career has been about keeping things protected, keeping things contained. He never stopped to ask why that came so naturally to him. But neither has Margaret. She feels the room before she enters it. She knows what people are carrying now, before they even open their mouths. Where Daniel processes, she connects. Where he translates, she transmits. Separately, they're incomplete, but together, there's something the film never names directly, because it doesn't need to. Philosophers have been circling it for centuries. The ancient Greeks called it logos and sophia, masculine reason and feminine wisdom. Not opposites, but complements. Two frequencies that only make sense when they're running in the same current. But here's what the film understands that most stories miss. They didn't become this way on their own. Neither of them remembers anything before the age of 10. Not vaguely, not hazily, just gone. A clean blank slate where childhood should be. Like someone went in and carefully removed everything before a certain date. They both noticed it at different points in their lives and just filed it somewhere quiet. The way you file things that don't have an explanation. The explanation, though, has fur and feathers and 4 legs. Throughout the film, animals keep appearing. A cardinal on a table, a herd of deer standing completely still outside of a safe house window, all of them staring at Daniel, a fox pausing on a dirt road to look at them. None of it feels random and none of it feels safe, but none of it feels threatening either. Just present, watching, waiting, assisting. In many Native American traditions, the cardinal is a messenger, a bridge between worlds that appears at the exact moment a door is about to open. The deer, the fox, the raccoon, each of them carries its own meaning in traditions that understood long before Western science that the natural world speaks a language that we stopped listening to. Spielberg knows this. He chose these animals deliberately because they were never animals. When Hugo finally sits Daniel and Margaret down in the reconstruction of her childhood home, rebuilding it brick by brick, room by room, forcing her mind back into the night, everything changed. The truth surfaces. These beings have been visiting both of them since childhood, and they never appeared as what they actually were, because what they actually are would have shattered a child's mind on contact. So they took forms a child could receive without breaking. Something soft, something familiar, a bird on a table, a deer in the trees. Every time they made eye contact, something changed. A modification, a download, building something in both of them quietly, patiently, over decades that neither of them understood until they were standing in that reconstructed kitchen, looking at a past they'd been made to forget. Hugo didn't rebuild that house as therapy. He rebuilt it because Margaret couldn't step into who she was until she fully faced what happened to her. You can't become something new until you've walked back through the door you've been afraid of. She had to go back there before she could go forward. Hugo knew all of this was coming. He's known for a long time. The moment Daniel told him he could understand Margaret's clicks, Hugo didn't flinch. Of course, he said. There have always been 2 of you. Like he'd been waiting for 35 years to hear those words confirmed out loud. He'd built an operation around this, hidden footage going back to the 40s, crashed crafts, bodies, surgeries performed on living beings with no anesthesia, no mercy, no acknowledgement that what was on the table had any right to feel pain. He'd spent decades collecting what others spent decades burying. And when Noah entered his mind, when that consciousness transfer happened, Normally, that would leave most people destroyed. Hugo absorbed it like someone who already knew what it felt like from the inside. Hugo was probably a passenger too. That's the only explanation that fits. Someone who went through his own version of what Daniel and Margaret are only now experiencing, or someone that's currently going through that right now. Which is why he understood it, which is why he wasn't afraid, and which is why when he spoke to Noah at the end, it wasn't with anger. After your wife died, he told him, you changed. Noah is the hardest character in the film to look at directly, not because he's frightening, but because he's familiar. He's not hiding the truth out of malice, he genuinely believes that disclosure will break people, shatter faith, collapse the story civilization has been telling itself since the beginning of recorded history. He's seen what these beings are capable of. He almost died using one of their devices, but he kept using it anyway because control had become the only thing standing between him and whatever was underneath the grief. His wife died, and when that happened, something calcified. He threw himself into the institution, into the mission, into the absolute conviction that he knew better than the rest of humanity what humanity could handle. It was a man who survived something unbearable and decided that survival gave him the right to decide what everyone else got to know. The film takes him seriously. It doesn't let Daniel dismiss him, and it doesn't let the audience dismiss him either. When Hugo speaks to him near the end, he just says, "You're too close to this. You stopped protecting people and started controlling them. You couldn't tell the difference anymore." Noah has no answer for that because there isn't one. The moral question at the center of Disclosure Day isn't good versus evil. It's something older and harder than that. Who has the right to decide when a species is ready to grow up? Noah says the gatekeepers do. Daniel says nobody does. The film doesn't let either of them off the hook fully either, but it knows which one leads somewhere and which one leads nowhere. Stagnation dressed up as protection is still stagnation. Keeping people ignorant doesn't keep them safe, it just keeps them frozen while everything else in the universe keeps moving. And here's the thing that the film never says out loud but screams in every frame. If these beings wanted to destroy us, we'd already be gone. You don't spend that kind of time on a species you've decided to eliminate. You don't take the form of a cardinal so a little girl won't be frightened. You don't rebuild yourself as something soft and familiar and wait all these years for two people to find each other and be ready if your end game is conquest. They aren't here because they want something from us. They're here because they've been waiting for us to be ready. Which is why everything from Daniel's cybersecurity career to Margaret's news career to the animals, Hugo's years working with Noah, Noah's grief, all of it collapses into a single room, a news station, a camera, a woman who had just moved here feeling like Kansas just wasn't quite right, not knowing that it was the exact place where she was supposed to be, because this moment was always where she was headed. Daniel loads the footage, decades of it, bodies, crafts, evidence of contact that goes back further than anyone in the building can fully absorb. The other stations take the feed. The power that Noah tried to cut comes back on through something nobody in that room can fully explain. And then the one that knows all rolls in. The one Hugo brought out. The one Margaret wasn't ready to face until she walked back through her childhood home and remembered what she was. It speaks in the same language, the clicks, the mathematics, the frequency that sounds like noise to everyone in the room except one person. Daniel listens, translates, leans close and whispers into Margaret's ear. She walks to the camera, she looks into the lens, not at Noah, not at Daniel, not at the being behind her, at us. At every person watching from every screen in every corner of the world, simultaneous, the same eye contact that the cardinal made with her on the kitchen table, scaled to the entire human race. She says one word, listen. Spielberg doesn't show you what comes next. He doesn't tell you whether humanity rises to the moment or collapses under the weight of it. He just leaves you sitting in the dark with the question, the same one Daniel faced alone in that office with his hand on the strap of a bag. The disclosure was never the event. It was always the invitation. I want to tell you something that happened 2 days before I saw this film. Something that made this even more personal for me. I'm a fairly logical person. I try to stay grounded, look for the rational explanations and things before I reach for anything else, but 2 days before this movie was released, I was on site working on a firewall issue, funny enough, when I had this feeling to check one of the PCs in the back of the office. As I entered the office, I began to walk near the window when something interesting happened. Now, some might call this a coincidence, some might call this a synchronicity, some might call it a sign, but at the very moment I walked near the window, a cardinal landed less than 2 feet away from me. I know it's a cardinal because I love birds, and it was unmistakable from the bright red feathers to the bright red beak. He didn't fly away. We looked at each other for 2, maybe 3 minutes. I even got closer. He hopped around, settled back, kept looking at me. When I finally reached in my pocket to take a picture, he was gone. Then 2 days later, I ended up watching a film about a woman and a man who both locked eyes with a red cardinal, and something woke up inside them. Now, I'm not saying it meant anything, but it happened at a moment in my life where I've learned to pay attention to things that I cannot really explain, so I choose to believe it meant something. I've learned over the years that life is full of unknowns, but they only stay unknown if you choose to never explore them. Both Margaret and Daniel had a ton of unknowns throughout their lives, things being moved and set up in a way to perfectly align them where they needed to be. This film for me was a personal one, and your willingness to explore this with me means a part of myself that was unknown is now known to you, myself, and everyone else who stayed, and that means something. By the way, if you enjoyed the video, please drop a like or sub for more. Let me know in the comments your thoughts about the film, because for me, this was a 10 out of 10. Perfect moviegoer's experience. And anyway, I love to build a real community of people that just love the art of film.